It's Christmas time, and while we're all caught up in the festivities, have you ever wondered where these traditions came from?
You know, it really is amazing how Christmas has evolved over the centuries. It's like this blend of Christian beliefs and pre-Christian customs. It's really quite fascinating.
Okay, so you've been looking into all this. What's the most surprising thing you found out about Christmas?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things is the word Christmas itself.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a shortened form of Christ's Mass, right? And get this, the first time it was used, as Christus Mass at least, was all the way back in 1038.
wow, 1038. That's going way back.
It is, isn't it? It just goes to show you how language changes over time
Yeah,
and how words kind of reflect these shifts in culture and religion.
so then how did we land on December 25th for Christmas? Is that really when Jesus was born?
You know, that's a question that comes up a lot. And the truth is, we don't actually know the exact date of Jesus's birth.
So how did December 25th become the day to celebrate Christmas?
Well, there are a couple of theories. One is that it might be connected to the Roman winter solstice, the shortest day of the year.
Right.
They had this big celebration called Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, which was the birthday of Sol Invictus, the invincible sun. And guess when that was celebrated?
December 25th.
Yep, right on December 25th. So some people think that early Christians might have chosen that date to make it easier for people to kind of transition to a new faith.
So it was already a time when folks were celebrating something.
Exactly. It was a familiar time of year for festivities.
Makes sense.
There's another theory, too. It says that December 25th was actually calculated based on the date of the Annunciation.
The Annunciation.
Yeah, which is celebrated on March 25th, 9 months before December 25th.
So it's like a 9-month countdown to Christmas.
Could say that.
But I guess for most Christians today, the exact date doesn't really matter as much as the meaning behind it, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's about celebrating the birth of Jesus, not so much about the specific date on the calendar.
Now, Christmas has definitely changed a lot over the years.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely not static. It has such a long and winding history.
So where do we even begin with all that history?
Well, I guess you could say that the early church really formalized things when they adopted December 25th as the official date for Christmas.
Okay, so that was a pretty big step. And then what happened?
Well, its popularity got a big boost in 800 AD when Charlemagne was crowned emperor on, you guessed it, Christmas Day.
So now it's not just a religious holiday anymore, it's tied to political power too.
Right. And then, get this, during the medieval period, Christmas became this big, rowdy public festival.
Like a giant party.
Pretty much. There were feasts and games and just a lot of
I
merriment.
bet that was fun, but I'm guessing that didn't last forever.
You're right about that. Things started to shift during the Reformation in the 16th and 17th centuries. Some Protestant groups started emphasizing the Christ child as the gift giver, and they moved gift giving from December 6th to Christmas Eve.
Interesting. So different Christian groups were already developing their own unique traditions.
Absolutely. And then you have the Puritans in 17th century England. They weren't too keen on all the Christmas festivities.
Really?
Yeah.
The Puritans, that's surprising.
They actually tried to ban Christmas altogether. They saw it as a distraction from, true religious devotion.
But I bet people didn't just go along with that.
You're right. There were actually pro-Christmas riots. People took to the streets to defend their right to celebrate Christmas.
Pro-Christmas riots. Wow. That's wild. People were really passionate about their Christmas celebrations.
They were, and you know what's even more interesting? Football, which the Puritans had banned on Sundays, became like a symbol of defiance against a Christmas ban.
Football. I never would have guessed that. So what happened after the Puritans lost their grip on things?
Well, by the 19th century, Christmas started to take on a more sentimental, family-oriented feel.
Ah, so this is where authors like Washington Irving and Charles Dickens come in.
Exactly. They wrote these heartwarming stories, especially Dickens' A Christmas Carol. It really shaped how people viewed Christmas.
It's amazing how a good story can have such a lasting impact.
And Dickens really promoted this carol philosophy, emphasizing compassion and kindness, especially during Christmas.
And let's not forget Scrooge. He's like the ultimate Christmas grump.
Bah, humbug.
Exactly. And that same century, we saw the very first commercial Christmas card in 1843.
Oh, that's right. It was in London, and it showed a family enjoying a Christmas meal.
Such a classic image.
It really is.
Yeah,
Speaking of classic images, what would Christmas be without a Christmas tree?
absolutely. How did that tradition even start? I know it's got something to do with Germany, right?
Yeah, it started as a German Lutheran tradition way back in the 16th century. There are records of a Christmas tree in the Cathedral of Strasbourg as early as 1539.
That's amazing. So from a cathedral in Germany to, well, pretty much everywhere in the world now.
Isn't it fascinating? And the evergreen tree itself has a lot of symbolism in Christianity. It represents Christ and eternal life.
And those twinkling lights on the tree, they always add a little magic to the season. And then, of course, there's the gift giving and all those figures we associate with Christmas.
That's what really gets to the heart of Christmas, I think. It's about generosity and kindness and the joy of giving.
So let's talk about Santa Claus. I mean, that's a story that's traveled a long way, from St. Nicholas to the jolly guy we know today.
Yeah, it's a fascinating mix of history and folklore. It all goes back to the Dutch Sinterklaas, which is where we get the name Santa Claus.
And St. Nicholas was this 4th century bishop who was known for being super generous, especially to children.
Oh, yeah, there are all sorts of stories about him. Like, he would secretly deliver gifts to children and even provide dowries for young women who couldn't afford them.
He was like the original Secret Santa. But how did he become the Santa we know today, with the red suit and the reindeer and everything?
Well, that's where American culture comes in. Washington Irving, the guy who wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow?
Yeah.
He actually played a big role in shaping how Americans saw Santa Claus. He added a bit more whimsy and humor to the character.
I bet he did. So when did Santa get that iconic look that we all know?
Well, a German-American cartoonist named Thomas Nast really solidified that image in the late 19th century. He did these illustrations for Harper's Weekly that showed Santa with the red suit, the white beard, and that jolly demeanor.
It's crazy how influential those illustrations were.
Yeah.
But Santa's not the only gift giver out there, right?
No, not at all. There are all sorts of fascinating gift-giving figures all over the world. Like in parts of Europe, it's the Christ kind who brings presents on Christmas Eve.
Oh, wow. So some kids are waiting for Santa and others are waiting for the Christ kind.
Exactly. And then in Greece, they have Saint Basil who brings gifts on New Year's Eve.
So many different traditions, but they all revolve around that same idea of gift giving and sharing joy.
Exactly. It just shows how Christmas has been adapted and interpreted in all sorts of ways by different cultures. And speaking of traditions, have you ever thought about caroling and Christmas cards and those big Christmas meals?
Oh, yeah. Those are definitely essential parts of Christmas. I bet there are some interesting stories behind them, too.
There are. For example, caroling goes all the way back to medieval times. Back then, people would go from house to house singing folk songs, not just during Christmas, but also for other celebrations like harvest festivals.
Oh, really? So it wasn't always a Christmas thing?
Nope, it was much later that those songs became specifically associated with Christmas and even got incorporated into church services.
So things change, traditions evolve. Yeah. What about Christmas cards?
Well, the very first commercial Christmas card was created in London in 1843.
That's right. We talked about that earlier, the one with the family having dinner.
Exactly. And that simple image really resonated with people. I mean, Christmas cards are still incredibly popular today.
They are. Now, what about the food? Every culture has its own special Christmas dishes, right?
Oh, yeah. The variety's amazing. In the UK, you've got your classic roast turkey or goose served with all the trimmings.
Yeah.
And then there's Christmas pudding, or fruitcake for dessert.
Those are classics. What about other parts of the world?
Well, in a lot of cultures, Christmas dinner is all about the meat. So, in Poland and Scandinavia, fish is a big part of the Christmas meal. And in Germany, France, and Austria, they often have goose or pork.
Wow. So many different traditions. It's amazing how food brings people together during Christmas.
Definitely. And of course, we can't forget the desserts. There's the German Stollen, which is this delicious fruit-filled cake, and the Italian panettone, which is a sweet bread with candied fruits.
It all sounds so good.
Yeah.
It really is amazing how much history and culture are packed into every part of Christmas.
Yeah, from the food to the decorations to the gift giving. It really is a testament to the power of Christmas, to bring people together and share joy. It's a holiday that keeps evolving and adapting, but at its core, it's about celebrating the good in humanity. It really has, And it all goes back to the Dutch Sinterklaas, which is where we get the name Santa Claus from.
Right, right. And St. Nicholas, he was this 4th century bishop who was known for being incredibly generous, especially towards children.
Oh, yeah. Tons of stories about his good deeds.
I mean, he'd secretly deliver gifts to children. He'd provide dowries for young women who couldn't afford them.
He was, like the original Secret Santa.
Yeah. But how did he transform into the Santa we all know and love today?
Well, American culture played a pretty big role in that. Washington Irving, the guy who wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, kind of shaped that early American image of Santa in his book The History of New York, adding a bit of whimsy and humor to the character. But the visual representation we all know today, that really came about thanks to a German American cartoonist,
Really?
a guy named Thomas Nast. Back in the late 19th century, he did these illustrations for Harper's Weekly.
Uh-huh.
And they showed Santa with the red suit, white beard, that jolly demeanor.
It's incredible how those illustrations just capture people's imaginations.
Yeah, they did. And Santa's not the only gift giver associated with Christmas.
Oh, right. It's different in different places.
Yeah. So in some parts of Europe, it's the Christ kind who brings presents on Christmas Eve.
So some kids are waiting for Santa and some are waiting for the Christ.
That's right. And then in Greece, you have St. Basil.
Same puzzle.
He delivers presents, but on New Year's Eve.
Wow. So many variations. But it's all about, giving and receiving gifts during the Christmas season.
It is, yeah. It's just fascinating how all these different cultures have taken these traditions and kind of made them their own. Speaking of traditions, have you ever thought about caroling, Christmas cards, or even Christmas dinner? How those came to be?
Yeah, I mean, what would Christmas be without those things? They're like such essential parts of the celebration.
Absolutely. Caroling, for example, goes all the way back to medieval times.
Oh, wow.
Back then, groups would go from house to house, but they would sing folk songs for any celebration.
So it wasn't just Christmas carols.
Not just for Christmas, no. It was for things like harvest festivals, too.
So how did caroling become, a Christmas thing?
Well, it was later on that those songs became associated with Christmas and even started being used in church services.
Makes sense. So what about those Christmas cards?
Well, the very first commercial Christmas card, it was created in London in 1843.
Right, we talked about that earlier by Sir Henry Cole.
Yeah, it showed a family having a nice Christmas dinner.
Classic Christmas image.
And it included that message, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yeah, it's amazing how much that image has stuck with us.
It really is. And, even in today's digital world, Christmas cards are still popular.
Yeah, they are.
Now let's talk food. I mean, every culture seems to have their own special Christmas dishes, right?
Right.
So in the UK, a traditional Christmas meal, you've got that roast turkey or goose served with gravy, potatoes, all the trimmings.
Oh, man, it's making me hungry.
And then for dessert, there's Christmas pudding or that rich fruit cake.
Those are staples. What about, like, some other Christmas food traditions, from around the world?
Well, lots of cultures, the Christmas meal is centered around meat. So in places like Poland and Scandinavia, fish is a big part of it. And then in Germany, France, and Austria, they often have goose or pork.
Wow. It just goes to show how food is, like, central to Christmas celebrations.
It really is. And of course, we can't forget about all the sweets, right? There's that German Stollen. It's a fruit-filled cake. And then there's the Italian panettone, a sweet bread with candied fruits.
It all sounds so good.
It does, doesn't it? It's just incredible how much history, culture, and tradition are packed into every aspect of Christmas, from the food and the decorations to those gift-giving figures.
It really is a testament to how powerful Christmas is. It brings people together, to share joy and celebrate giving.
It's a holiday that's constantly evolving and adapting, but those core values of love, generosity, and hope.
Yeah, they really shine through. Yeah, it's amazing how those traditions have become so just ingrained in how we celebrate Christmas.
It is. And like we were saying, they're always evolving, always adapting.
Like the Christmas tree.
Yes.
It started in Germany, but now it's everywhere.
It really is. It's a global phenomenon now.
And I love how, people decorate their trees differently based on where they are or what their culture is like.
Yeah, it adds another layer to the whole tradition.
It does. And it makes it so much fun to learn about how other people celebrate Christmas around the world.
Exactly. And, as we move into the 21st century, Christmas keeps evolving, but those core values, love, generosity, hope, they're always there.
So after looking at all of this history, what really stands out to you about Christmas?
For me, it's how it blends those ancient customs with the Christian beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
It's created a holiday that's both spiritual and, culturally vibrant.
Yeah, it's a reminder that Christmas is more than just a day on the calendar.
It really is. It's more about the spirit, the feeling, a celebration of what's good in humanity.
That's a great way to put it.
And with so many traditions around the world, there's always more to learn about Christmas. Maybe this will inspire you to explore some of those customs yourself.
That's a great idea. Well, thanks for joining me on this journey through the history of Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too.